high-value targets in all weather conditions. These weapons also boast of a range of over 300 kilometers. Well, the missiles also uses an upgraded M270 launcher, multiple launch rocket systems for its launch. And like I mentioned, it can be fired from upgraded MRL systems and can also strike deep beyond the front line and rather strike deep within the enemy's territory. Well, these can be used to hit command and control centers, air defenses and logistics sites located deep within the territory. While U.S. President Joe Biden assured strong support for Ukraine's war to repel Russian invaders during Zelensky's visit to Washington. Take a listen.
Above all, though, President Biden wants to use today to reaffirm his commitment, this administration's commitment, this country's commitment to continuing to lead the world in support of Ukraine for as long as it takes. And that's what he intends to do today. And with that, I look forward to taking your questions.
And this was despite Republican lawmakers' opposition to send billions to Kiev in aid. Now, Zelensky thanked U.S. President Joe Biden, saying that the aid package was exactly what our soldiers need at the moment. Now, with increasing tensions globally, reports suggest that Russia, the United States of America and China have all built new nuclear facilities. As per media reports, all three countries dug new tunnels at their nuclear test sites in recent years. One is operated by China in the far western region of Xinjiang, one by Russia in an Arctic Ocean archipelago, and another in the U.S. in the Nevada desert. As per the experts' understanding of satellite images, expansions were spotted at 3 nuclear test sites. The satellite images from the past 3 to 5 years show new tunnels under mountains, new roads and storage facilities. Now, the 1996 Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty was signed by China and the U.S., but it has not been ratified yet. Only Russia ratified the treaty, but Russian President Vladimir Putin said in February that he would order a test if the U.S. moves first. And days after the Azerbaijan and Armenia conflict over the Nagorno-Karabakh region ended in a ceasefire, Armenia has clearly spelled out its allegiance. And it is not with Russia. Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan addressed his nation, saying that the current foreign security were ineffective and insufficient. Take a listen.
It has become evident to all of us that the CSTO instruments and the instruments of the Armenian-Russian military political cooperation are insufficient for the protection of the external security of Armenia.
Prime Minister Pashinyan added that Armenia should instead join the International Criminal Court, the same court that issued an arrest warrant against the Russian President Vladimir Putin, that is for its war crimes in Ukraine that we've been closely tracking here on WION. Currently, Armenia is a part of a Moscow-led collective security treaty organization. The group pledges to protect its members that come under an attack. But Armenia alleges that Russia refused to come to its aid. Pashinyan sent the Rome Statute, which is a founding document of the ICC, for ratification. Now, Russia has been criticizing Armenia for the way it has been handling the crisis. Prime Minister Pashinyan also added that the decision is in the interest of country security and directed against CSTO or Russia. Now, this comes after Azerbaijan claimed full control over Nagorno-Karabakh region. Moscow said it would not intervene as Armenia itself recognizes the disputed region as a part of Azerbaijan. Now, the 24-hour battle claimed over 200 lives, while thousands have been injured. And now, as a fallout of the recent violent clashes, the first batch of ethnic Armenians who fear ethnic cleansing arrived in Armenia's Syunik region. Now, it mostly included women, children and the elderly. The authorities are preparing to receive over 120,000 refugees from Nagorno-Karabakh, as the Prime Minister Pashinyan said that they're ready to take them. Now, the war between Azerbaijan and Armenia dates back to 1990s. That is when the Soviet Union broke apart. The region, located in Azerbaijan, was under the control of Armenian forces from 1994 till 2020, who were backed by Armenian military. During a 6-week war in 2020, Azerbaijan took back some parts of Nagorno-Karabakh, while some parts remain under the control of ethnic Armenians. And on September 19th, Azerbaijan launched a massive operation against the ethnic Armenians who had to agree to the demands and lay down their arms the very next day. The procedure of surrendering arms is still underway, and the final status of the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh still hangs in balance.
At least one woman has been injured and heavy infrastructure losses incurred in Russia's overnight missile and drone attack on the port of Odessa in southern Ukraine. Now, the Ukrainian lawmakers said the overnight attack resulted in the damage of the port infrastructure, a grain silo and an empty building that used to be a hotel. Visuals showed Ukraine's emergency service trying to extinguish fires at the hotel building. Ukraine's Air Force said that its air defense systems destroyed at least 19 Iranian-made Shahed drones, nearly 11 cruise missiles, and at least 2 hypersonic missiles that Russia launched on Ukraine overnight. However, there was no immediate comment from Russia about the attack. The situation in Odessa and its ports is being watched carefully by grain markets after Ukraine announced a humanitarian corridor for ships to sail into Black Sea ports and also load grain for African and Asian markets following Russia exiting a deal that ensured the safe exports of Ukraine's grain.
In other business news, Russia has restricted exports of the diesel, which U.S. use for transportation, heating and industrial activities as the Northern Hemisphere winter approaches and global diesel markets become tight. Well, as Moscow's invasion of Ukraine approaches the 20th month, many observers believe that the stop is just temporary. However, some view it as another example of Moscow weaponizing energy exports. According to the government, the ban applies to all diesel, including summer, winter and Arctic mixes, as well as heavy distillates like gas oils. It went into effect on September 21st, but will remain in force indefinitely. When it comes to the diesel industry, Russia is a major player. According to a Bloomberg report, Moscow is the largest exporter of diesel-type gasoline through sea so far this year, just edging out the United States. From the beginning of the year to the middle of September, it averaged over 1 billion barrels per day in outbound shipments. On the surface, it would seem that the Western countries that flocked to defend Ukraine when Russian forces crossed the border in February 2022 would be unaffected by the prohibition. Now, after the incident, traditional European customers ceased all purchases from Russia. Because of the ban, Turkey, Brazil and Saudi Arabia have emerged as major new markets for this trade. However, oil markets are international and the disruption of such a substantial supply for an extended time is almost unimaginable. Russia, for its part, probably can't go on for very long without resuming shipments. However, an export embargo is required for urgent internal reasons. This might harm Russia's refining industry before it affects European purchases. Even though Russian President Vladimir Putin has directed the administration to prevent further price hikes for domestic gasoline, Russia is struggling to do so.
Following the attacks from Ukrainian military at the populated areas of the Donetsk region, the Russian-installed head of the annexed region has now imposed a night curfew on weekdays.
Right. The Moscow-installed governor in his decree prohibited residents from being outside from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. unless residents are specifically permitted to be outdoors. Various other rallies and demonstrations as well as other mass events in the region have also been forbidden.
Right. Now, unless permitted by the operational headquarters for military threat response. This curfew will, of course, be in place. Now, the decree also adds that public, private and official transport is to be limited during the curfew. However, that does not apply to government agency employees, some services and security agencies, Russia's security service or the Internal Affairs Ministry.
Right, and the Ukrainian military had fired at least 42 different shells at populated areas of Donetsk, People's Republic, on Sunday, and the DPR mission to the Joint Center for the Control and Coordination of Issues related to Ukrainian war crimes in their statement stated, and I'm quoting here, the enemy carried out 7 attacks from 155mm artillery in the Donetsk direction, including a cluster warhead.
Now, with at least 5 injuries reported, checkpoints and security posts were installed at the borders of Luhansk and Zaporizhia. Ukrainian forces have been battling Moscow-backed separatists in Donetsk and neighboring Luhansk since Russia annexed Crimea in 2014. But a referendum stated that several of the people who are staying in these regions, they opt and see themselves as Russians. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said no peace negotiations can proceed until the country's full territory is returned.
All right, so let's start this broadcast with the big story that we are tracking on WION at this hour. The fighting in the Russia-Ukraine war has intensified in the last 48 odd hours. The Russian army has reportedly attacked multiple command centers, tanks and ammunition depots and other military targets of Ukraine in the last 24 hours. Ukrainian forces are said to be returning in kind, striking the Russian air defense systems. This is what the Ukrainians claim. Now, this is the moment that a Ukrainian missile struck a Russian Navy's Black Sea Fleet headquarters in Sevastopol on Friday. The smoke can be seen rising from the building just before a missile made its impact and the sound of explosion was heard. Now, Russia, remember, said that it had just 1 personnel missing, but Ukraine claims that dozens, including senior Russian naval commanders, have died or have sustained some serious injuries when it staged this missile attack on the Sevastopol headquarters of the Black Sea Fleet. Now remember, at this moment, it is not possible to independently verify the claims and counter-claims by Russia and Ukraine. Now, the strike at the heart of Russia's Black Sea Fleet headquarters marks a major blow for Moscow, which, remember, has suffered a string of attacks on the strategically important port city of Sevastopol. Now, buoyed after the capture last week of the key village of Klishchevka, Ukrainian troops have lauded the 155mm howitzers as key equipment that is being provided by the United States and its NATO allies. Now, the Ukrainian commanders have described the capture of Klishchevka and the neighboring Andriivka as stepping stones to taking back Bakhmut, which fell to the Russians after many months of some very heavy fighting. The gains have been amongst the most significant in Ukraine's counter-offensive, which began in the month of June, but has struggled all through because of the entrenched Russian defenses. Now, Moscow has also unleashed its fury on the battlefront. Russian Defense Ministry has said in the last 24 hours that the Russian army has repelled several attacks by the Ukrainian army in the direction of Donetsk, Zaporizhia and Lyman. Moscow claims to have hit targets such as radar sets, tanks, ammunition depots and also a number of command centers. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who visited Washington this week, has urged his allies to provide Ukraine with long-range missiles so that it can target positions deeper inside the Russian-controlled territory. Now, on Thursday, Volodymyr Zelensky confronted some weakening political support in the United States for his country's demands for more arms. Now, behind the visuals of firm handshakes and also a grand cabinet table and shows of solidarity at the Oval Office lay the fact that Zelensky's second wartime trip to Washington was far tougher than the first one. All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of what, of course, is happening at this moment between Russia and Ukraine, we're being joined by Ms. Alina Trigub, the Secretary General of the Independent Defense Anti-Corruption Committee. She's joining us from Kiev at this moment. Now, Ms. Trigub, this is an important moment in the counter-offensive, is it not? Because Ukraine has successfully managed to strike at the headquarters of Russia's Black Sea Fleet in Sevastopol. And what we're given to understand is that Ukraine has carried out a missile strike on the headquarters of the Black Sea Fleet.
Yes, indeed, it is a very important development in war, in Ukrainian counteroffensive operation. This is the coordinated so-called Crimean campaign. I want to remind you that there were some reports confirmed by independent analysts that Ukraine destroyed 5 S-400 missile launchers, which is the Russian counter anti-aircraft missile. These are very important pieces of equipment, one of each costs $1.4 billion. And it seems that those reports were true indeed, because now we saw this attack in Sevastopol, and without destroying Russian air defenses, those attacks wouldn't be possible. So it seems that Ukraine achieved this success with combination of UAVs and missiles, and now we see the result.
Absolutely, indeed, because there could be some level of credibility to those claims that have been made that the Russian S-400 anti-air defense systems in Sevastopol may have been destroyed, because otherwise that missile strike simply would not have been possible. But the question that I want to ask you, Ms. Trigub, at this moment is, Ukraine seems to have a strategy to target, Russia's military installations, predominantly in the Crimean Peninsula. But Russia has said that Crimea is a red line for it. And, even the top leadership within Russia has said that if Crimea were to come under attack, then they would be willing to use the nuclear option. Does it not concern the Ukrainian leadership?
Well, absolutely not. Because in Ukraine, everybody already understood that those are just Russian threats, and so-called Russian territory, which Russia recognizes as its occupied territory, Crimea, Donbass area, they were hit many, many times, and nothing happened. And apparently, Russian claims that they will use nuclear weapons if their territory is hit. What they really mean is that it's when Vladimir Putin's regime is threatened, not when Russian territory is hit. And therefore, this nuclear blackmail definitely doesn't work for Ukraine, and the whole world, of course,